what we tend to not understand is that time really doesn't exist. Clocks exist. Time doesn't exist.
Right.
And like you said, we've been given this functional arrow of time, which puts us in one specific direction so that we can organize our thoughts and our days and our years and weeks and what we're going to do and where we're going to meet up with somebody and everything else. So we have this ability to coordinate and collaborate with each other, like how we're here today at this specific time. However, if you understand that time is also an illusion, it's something that you can use as a tool, but if you also understand that it's an illusion, then you can actually master time and you can maximize what you're doing on this planet.
There's a lot of people that's trapped into increments of time that they have to work in, you understand me, from a 9 to 5 position, and they have to live within windows of hours and dissect their days based on that. You understand me? And the unfortunate reality of it is that most people will never have a true understanding of life because they're living on borrowed time. You understand me? And so I'm always working to help present perspective and observation on where people can understand the laws of time a little more. You understand me? Especially as we enter into 4th and 5th dimensional phases here, you understand me, on this planet Earth. You understand me? Or the universe, as we will. You know, human beings, you know, we're very interesting, you know, beings. You understand me? Like, just the idea that we allow someone else to decide what time is for us is a very interesting thing. Right? From Julius Caesar to the Roman Pope with his papal bulls deciding, you know, what is a 365 calendar, what is talking about 7-day weeks and 60 seconds and 60 minutes. And we say, okay, let's go along with it. You know? and we don't realize that it speeds up, you understand me, the process from being born to when you leave this place. You know, and then we already have expectations on what life is going to be because there's other people that tell us what it is, when we're going to die, when we get old, when we're going to feel a certain way. So it sets up a curation for us to die a certain way and at a certain speed. I want to hear what your interpretation of what time is first.
Well, you know, this is a very deep question. I've talked about this so many times in different lectures and workshops, you know, because for people in the third dimension, we're in the third dimension, what we tend to not understand is that time really doesn't exist. Clocks exist. Time doesn't exist.
Right.
And like you said, we've been given this functional arrow of time, which puts us in one specific direction so that we can organize our thoughts and our days and our years and weeks and what we're going to do and where we're going to meet up with somebody and everything else. So we have this ability to coordinate and collaborate with each other, like how we're here today at this specific time. However, if you understand that time is also an illusion, it's something that you can use as a tool, but if you also understand that it's an illusion, then you can actually master time and you can maximize what you're doing on this planet. Because if you go in all the higher dimensions, you know, we're in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and all the way up.
For the layman that don't understand what being in the 3rd dimension means, can you give us a breakdown?
Okay, sure. So if you draw a line on a piece of paper, that's the 1st dimension. If you then connect those lines and create a house on a piece of paper, that's a 2-dimensional structure, or you can move that into a computer. Anything you see in a computer that looks 3D is actually 2D. Right? So, and because we're in the 3rd, we can see down into 2D, we can see all the way down obviously into 1D, and we can manipulate those dimensions from our higher selves. Now, now there are beings in 4th, 5th, and 6th dimensions. There's people above us. Now, because of that, they see us and they recognize the past, present, and future operating all at the same time. Everything's happening at once.
Right.
There is no separation between the past, present, and the future. The arrow doesn't exist. Because they're higher than us, they can look down into the 3rd and they can see into what we're doing. So
who are before? Hey, we got to unpack a little bit. We got to unpack.
Okay.
It's high level, but I want to make sure that the people can follow along with it. So, you know, talking about 3rd dimension, right? You know, it's ants are not 3rd dimensional beings, right? Because they can't see upward, right? They're not horizontal. You understand me? They exist on the plane where they're looking forward, right? So when you're moving about the rest of the world that is higher up to them. They have no access to that, no perspective on that whatsoever. You understand me? For them, everything is straight and in front of them. For human beings, we have the ability to look upward, to look inward, to look outward, to look around, right? So therefore, we're connected into different angles, different perspectives, and different dimensions. You understand me? And then what I wanted to get though with next though, so let's say we got the third dimension, right? Now we're talking about the fourth dimension, right? What is the fourth dimension?
The fourth dimension is something called a tesseract. And if you go into the ancient text, it's Metatron's cube. Meta, M-E-T-A, meta. Obviously, you know,
meta.
The metaverse, right? They got that from Metatron's cube. It's a fourth dimensional substructure. Now, this fourth dimension is really something called a quasi-crystal. And this quasi-crystal in the fourth dimension, it casts a shadow. And the shadow that it casts, it creates the realm that we're living in here. We're living in a shadow of a higher dimension. That shadow creates a third dimension. It actually creates a fractal of it, creates this fractal holographic matrix that we're actually maneuvering in the third dimension right now.
So would the fourth dimension be considered a dimension of time?
You can address a fourth dimension of time like Albert Einstein was saying if you're just looking at a third plus a fourth being the arrow. But when you actually move up into another dimension, we now know in quantum physics that there is actually a fourth dimension. So all dimensions are in 90-degree angles of each other. And according to quantum theory right now, we're really anticipating that there's at least 11 dimensions, or otherwise the universe would collapse. So there really is truly a fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, all the way up. Not just the arrow of time. That's just something extra. They try to make it make sense back then by saying the fourth dimension is time, but time is actually not a dimension at all.
So now that's a very interesting, because it's a lot that I'm sure that everybody's like, all right, I thought I was smart, and then I tried to keep up, and then I got left behind.
Right.
You understand me? And what I want to bring people up to speed. You understand me? And the ideas in correlation to the analogy of how we're moving as a collective human species, specifically with technology, right?
Yeah.
Because I think it can be connected to, cellular technology, right? Going from 3G to 4G. And, going from 3G to 4G to 5G, which allows us to be able to do different things that we normally weren't able to do that weren't possible, right? Let's say you got 3G phones, it's helping you make better, faster calls, you understand me, connected. Then you get to 4G and you're talking about now applications and streaming, right? And Wi-Fi, right? Being able to connect within systems and the Internet of Things. And then 5G allowing completely new systems of possibility. And this was where I think a lot of people missed the point in 2020 where everybody was going through the craze of whether 5G was killing them or not. It was more so, what was 5G going to do? Right? So the NFTs and the Web3, right? And you're talking about, AR, VR, spatial reality, all these different things are not possible unless you have 5G being in connection. So it was representing a new world being produced outward. And it wasn't just an accident that NFTs came after the pandemic and this technology came after. There was something happening at that same point in time that for me, it was entering into a new phase of the world, a new dimension, a new speed, right? And that speed, can be known as time, if you will. And a lot of people, without that ability to process at a high level, right? Like you got bandwidth, you got landline speed, you got Wi-Fi speed, you got 5G speed, you get left behind. So everything seems that it's moving fast, but that's only because you're not moving as fast.
Right.
Everything stands still when you're moving at the same speed. You understand me? And so what I've always tried to do is keep people up to speed where we at in the dimension that we're currently in, or a little bit above, so you can be ahead of your time as a visionary. Because the fastest speed is the mind. You understand me? Being able to travel in your thought. Right? That can take you into time, that can take you ahead of time, if you will. But the ideas of time itself, I love the concept that it being an illusion, because even the era with time is connected to language, right? That I wrote in my book about how when we speak in the English language, it's a very future tense reference, right? So we're always referencing the future as we speak. I will be there, I'm going to do this. And we have so many different phrases within the language, we're always pushing ourselves, not connecting to the present,
Yeah.
but at a later point in day and time.
Right.
You understand me? And I think that learning to be present connects us to the power that we have in control over.
Yeah.
And then once you have that power, then you know how to create seeds that can control the rest of the time.
Mm-hmm.
But you said something about beings,
Yeah.
right? Now, we always look at ourselves as people, but then when we talk about people, you're talking about human beings, right? The being part is not something that the average person understands.
Yeah.
Right? And then when you're saying that there are other beings, who are these other beings?
I believe personally, just based off of my research, and I've gone through now over 1,000 scriptures, texts, papyruses, cuneiform tablets from all over the world. They all have a very similar story.
Mm-hmm.
And all these ancient civilizations talk about beings, not just beings who came here from other planets, people that look like us and we look like them. We're, in other words, not identical, but very similar. In other words, a bilateral, bipedal hominid of some type that can maneuver around, that has appendages that can manipulate the environment, because without that, you can't move out into space and other places. And they also talk about multidimensional. You get into like the non-M.I.T and stuff like that, talking about multidimensional beings. And so in physics, in quantum physics in particular, they started theorizing on these dimensions and were able to even analyze and discover some that they actually do exist. And on top of that, they realized that the dimensions are packed so tight on top of one another that if you can phase shift your atomic structure, your subatomic frequency, you can walk right into another dimension. And so they started postulating, what if beings from higher dimensions or some of these apparitions and these paranormal phenomena that we're seeing, are they able to maybe take a glimpse or a peek? Are they phasing through into our universe? And so from higher dimensions. And so they started really theorizing it. It seems to be, and based on my research, that there's people living everywhere. Not just, and I'm not talking about little green men with antenna. I think that there's people living all throughout this universe in the third dimension. And I think there's people living all throughout even higher multiple dimensions, maybe at a certain level, a certain height in those dimensions. Maybe they don't have a real corporeal body.
Right, non-physical.
Non-physical, you know what I'm saying? But I believe that the consciousness is there.
Then that part is interesting, the non-physical aspect, because I understand that and I can believe in that idea and that concept. It's like what people think, I think of angels as angles.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Because, you know, angels are supposed to exist in between dimensions.
Yeah.
You understand me? And angles, you understand me, are dimensions.
That's
right? And so it's like perspective is your angle in which you see things and view things. And oftentimes angels come and gives us new perspective, new thoughts. You understand me?
Yeah.
Arriving from a different, completely dimension of thought that we couldn't arrive at ourselves.
Correct.
You know, but at the same time, when you're talking about non-corporeal bodies or non-physical bodies, you understand me? I like that concept because when you're talking about time, you're talking about light, you're talking about all of these different ways in which light or energy can exist within, and consciousness, right? The awareness of, you know, output, you understand, mathematical output, right? Do you believe that the universe is mathematical?
Oh, absolutely. The language of God is mathematics, because mathematics can literally explain everything that we experience and everything also that exists. Even the fact that we're existing in a light matrix can be proven through mathematics. So we're living in a matrix that's basically written on mathematics called Adinkra codes. And these Adinkra codes go all the way back to the Dogons. Dogon tribes out of Mali, Africa. They actually originated these codes, and they were given these codes by the Nomo, and they learned them. They drew them out as art forms. But now, and they put them on clothing and blankets and everything else.
So the Dogon tribe, very interesting tribe, you know, that was able to discover, you know, systems before telescopes and things of that nature.
Yeah.
So how did they arrive to be able to, because I know a lot of people, I posted about this not too long ago, people want to understand how the hell did the Dogon tribe arrive to it, right? I just subscribe to, you know, us being, you know, gods, melanated beings on this planet Earth. We connected in a way that we just don't understand anymore. You understand me? And being multidimensional, I think about physics in that aspect where you're talking about things being entangled. Not Will and Jada entanglements, you understand me? But quantum entanglements.
Right, yeah.
And, you know, once you understand that, being multidimensional to me is easily understood from the fact that you can break us down to atoms. right? And then cells, and then we get into our skin and we see our physical. But from an atomic level, those are different laws. Right? And we're made up of atoms. So that an aspect of our existence is obeying different laws of the universe. And then our cells are obeying different laws of gravity and magnetism, right, and flow. But then we as human beings are obeying different laws, right, of gravity and magnetism in the universe. And then we forget about the universal laws of our multidimensional self because we only know man's law.
Exactly.
You understand me? So I think being multidimensional is easily understood as above, so below. You understand me? But the idea of the Dogon people being able to chart systems, how were they able to figure that out? You understand me? Before the Europeans had an idea of what was out there.
Right. Well, to be honest with you, if you go all the way back to the ancient Dogon history, before they got to Mali, they were in the land of Kem. They were the original inhabitants of the land of Kem before it was called Egypt. And so...
Kem meaning the land of blacks?
The land of blacks, correct. Exactly, land of blacks. Kem was black, it's all black. That's in the tablets.
So Kem, there's so much Jews in here. But so in Kem, you understand me, that's Africa.
Yeah.
Right?
Africa.
I know everybody calls the Middle East as if...
it's Africa.
The Middle East is the most funniest made up concept, magical idea on the planet.
I know.
Because it's like, you have in Africa, but no, this is like the Middle East Africa. It doesn't count for Sub-Saharan Africa, and Northern Africa, and East Africa. Like, but it's Africa, right?
It's Africa.
Yeah, so...
I mean,
for those who don't
Cairo
know,
is in Africa.
Cairo's in Africa.
You know what I'm saying? I know, people still get it wrong till this day.
That's crazy.
It surprises me. But so they, according to their records and their handed down verbal history, their records are etched into caves and stuff like that. The Nomo came here from Sirius B. Okay, so there's a trinary star system that we know of called Sirius, the Sirius star system, A, B, and C. B is a failed star. In other words, it ran out of fuel, turned into a white dwarf. These beings were orbiting on a planet that orbited that star, according to the Dogon, not me. Came here, they're called the Nomo. The Dogon called them the Nomo. Taught them all about the star system, the orbital pattern, our entire solar system, the names, the shapes, the sizes, the colors of all the planets in our solar system, all the planetary alignments. And they even knew that that white dwarf star was so gravitationally heavy that one spoonful couldn't be lifted by over 1 million men. They even knew that. We learned that in quantum mechanics and quantum physics in the 1970s, 1980s. We hypothesized it. And obviously we couldn't even see that star until the 1980s, 1970s, I'm sorry.
So when did they record it?
Thousands of years ago.
Thousands of years ago.
It's like, we're talking about over 6,000, 7,000 years. They've had depictions of them and everything else, and they taught them how to make these Dogon masks, but they also gave them the Adinkra codes. Now these Adinkra codes look like designs on clothing and patterns. When you turn these designs into three-dimensional structures, they become something called error-correcting codes. And Professor James S. Gates, a black professor who used to be the science advisor for Obama when he was in office, he's now the professor, I believe, at the University of Maryland in supersymmetry and theoretical physics. He discovered these Adinkra codes. He rediscovered them, obviously, and he turned them into three-dimensional objects. And then from there, he found the error-correcting codes. He was analyzing and accessing information about the ether of space-time, and he discovered that the entire ether, in other words, everything this soup that we're operating in throughout the entire universe, is running on a specific code. It's called an Adinkra code. It's called error-correcting codes. The same exact kind of codes that run search engines and web browsers. That's what's running the universe.
So listen now. At certain points in time in the interview, the glasses got to come on. This was one of those points in time when we're talking about Adinkra codes and going into multidimensional aspects of thinking. Being connected to the stars, you understand me, and being connected to the universe is a very interesting aspect of thinking. I grew up, in the Nation of Islam.
Okay.
And in the Nation of Islam, there is a lot of, astronomical teachings, about astronomy and sizes of the planets and distance. That was one of the first things we had to learn.
Wow.
Right, where the distance between the planets, the speed of light, the speed of sound, right?
Wow.
The total square mileage of the water, earth, land, mountains, rivers, lakes, right? everything. So, you know, deep into the teachings of Elijah Muhammad is astronomy, right? He wasn't really into astrology because he said it was too much guesswork. But astronomy he was into because it was mathematical. And you're talking about, you know, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, for a black man to be teaching astronomy, especially the poor black people in America. It was it was
light years ahead of time.
It was an interesting indication of, you know, where he got his knowledge. Because he had a 3rd grade education, but he was teaching about astronomy. Right? And he would dare the scholars of the world to prove him wrong. Of course, none of them did, right? Because he was talking about Pluto back in those days before they would recognize Pluto, right? And I used to always think about why. And one of the last books that he wrote was called The Theology of Time. And The Theology of Time it's not a book for the beginner, initiate. You understand me? It's definitely more novice when you get into your understanding. And then that's when he proposed and he talked about alien life on Mars. Right? He talked about the different planets who can and who can't go there, what they were doing and building. Like, he has very detailed composition of thought on extraterrestrial life. You understand me? And the origins of the planet itself and the universe itself. You know, and it's very interesting because we often believe that our connection to, you know, the way that the Dogons were able to chart the stars is lost. Right? You know, but that knowledge has always been within our DNA and always been passed down within us. There's just certain keepers of that knowledge, right? And those keepers of the knowledge are not often listened to because, especially today, we in a very static, distracted, low-level way of thinking. So it's like, you have to think about the mind, and it's not even to say that they were the most intelligent people on the planet, but connected, you understand me, as being different. Like, that's a different type of intelligence. Because we only measure academia or scholarship intelligence that you get from universities, but we don't measure the intelligence you get from the universe. You understand me? I want to talk about, you know, I don't want to leave time in the star system just yet, but I do want to talk about your relationship with astronomy and whether you believe astrology to be a true science or not.
Well, I'm actually an amateur astronomer.
Okay.
I've been doing that for a long time.
Yes, sir.
I have a real nice telescope. I have a Celestron SLR, and it's a real nice telescope. You can actually see the rings of Saturn. You can see Jupiter. You can see Mars. I took a famous picture that's been circulating for years of Mars during the summer. When you take a picture of Mars during the summer, it actually has green, it has blues. It's not a red planet. You can see that the ice caps are smaller, which means they've melted. There's a lot of liquid water on the planet. And a lot of those greens, I believe, is vegetation. You know, and now all the science data is coming back out from NASA. Now, all of a sudden, press releases are coming out. The soil on Mars is better for growing crops than on Earth. Now they're saying there's billions of tons of liquid water on Mars now.
You know what I'm saying? I can believe that.
And they're also talking about the fact that there's an atmosphere that is the equivalent to being like 18,000 feet above sea level, but that's like going to Peru. I'm going to Peru in a few weeks, right? So same thing. You got to acclimate to that height, to that low oxygen, but you can still breathe as long as you stay close to the ground. Once you go higher up, it's going to be very dangerous. But if you're within like 10 feet of the ground, you can actually breathe. You just need to acclimate. So all of a sudden, all this is coming out because why? They're getting ready to, you know, to build an infrastructure up there, in my opinion, and do a breakaway civilization. That's what the whole Elon Musk and all that's on Mars is all about. So I got really into it. Now, one of the reasons why I built the underground shelter that you mentioned, called Fort Terra Nova, that was back in 2012, was because I was analyzing the precession of the equinoxes, the movement of the stars across the sky, the constellations across the sky. I noticed that they were speeding up. Based on my calculations, it was moving, instead of 27,000 years for one cycle, it was actually averaging around 25,000. I'm like, are the books wrong? Are these great astronomers wrong, or what's going on? And the more I dug into it, the more I looked into it, I realized the only thing that can explain this is if our sun is orbiting something. It would need breakaway speed, and it would, you know, it would speed up and it would slow down, speed up and slow down. So I started digging into that. I found out that they had something they were calling nemesis out there, something that they couldn't exactly say what it was, but they were saying there was a huge object out there orbiting our sun, and our sun was orbiting it. And they found it about 3 or 4 years ago. They labeled it Planet 9, but really is a brown dwarf star. They found a brown dwarf orbiting our sun. So we live in a binary solar system. We don't have one sun, we actually have two. One's a brown dwarf, which you can only see with 2-mass infrared mode on your telescope. You have to have a digital scope to see that because it's so dim, you can't see with the naked eye.
Is the sun black or white?
The sun is white. It's bright white, so it's not black actually. If you actually were able to go out and look at the sun above the atmosphere, you'll find out that it's actually bright white light. When it hits our atmosphere, it scatters, and when the light breaks down, we see more of the yellows because the blues are kept up there. So the sun actually is bright white.
Some say that the sun is black, but it's the charge of light that gives it the appearance of white.
Well, it's a nuclear explosion. Now, what's interesting about the sun is that a lot of the light doesn't even get to the surface for like 100, 200,000 years. So it could be both, a little bit of both. It could be that it is a dark sun, but the light is what we can see. For example, the sun is 8 light minutes away from Earth. So if the sun went dark right now, we'd have daylight for 8 minutes. Now the light,
and that's 90 million miles away.
90 million miles away, right? And the light that's formed on the inside from the collision of the atoms on the inside, the nuclei, when they're colliding and splitting, that light doesn't go straight from the center core right out to the outside of the sun. It actually meanders through the inside of the sun for thousands and thousands of years before it releases itself and leaves the corona. Then it takes 8 minutes to get to Earth. So the light that we're experiencing right now is hundreds of thousands of years old before it even got to us. You know what I'm saying? Before it left our sun.
So light is very interesting. You understand me? I want to talk about light and water for a second. Look like we might get to the whole elemental period by the time we're done with this conversation. So, I remember before I got on the journey of, teaching the financial literacy and liberation aspect, my deeper studies was into quantum physics and science and psychology and, a multitude of different things that I believe would help guide enlightenment. You understand me?
Yeah.
And so studying light, I started studying the 4th phase of water, right? Where in between, for those who don't know, water has 4 different phases. Some people say 5, but we're going to the 4. You understand me? Solid, liquid, gas. You understand me? And I used to think about that because I say the only difference between the water and each structure is the proton arrangement, not the proton count.
Right.
So it's not something new that's happening to the water that is entered into it that changes its state. It's the arrangement, you understand me, of its energy. And so when I thought about that, and then of course, light is energy. So we can say that it's light that changes, and then water has the most different states out of any other element. And so I liken that to consciousness, right?
Yeah.
That our consciousness can be in rigid states, it can be in flow states, right?
Yeah.
But what changes, your consciousness going from a lower consciousness to a higher consciousness is enlightenment.
Yeah.
Right? When we read, right, I always say we re-add, right? We're re-adding knowledge that is already in us because we're not actually, nothing physical is going in there. Nothing is going to tinkering and changing with your brain. It's literally electricity changing the arrangement, you understand me, and the structure of your state of consciousness.
Yeah.
And you can see a symbol, right, and gain enlightenment, right? Yeah. And it can cause an inner knowing that can have your mind, raising its vibration, right? And, that's not something that we often think about. And a lot of people gonna be like, oh, this conversation ain't gonna high level for real, right? But I say the 4th phase of water on purpose because, everything around us emits energy. Every single thing. We walk into a room, we say, damn, the vibe is off.
Right.
We don't realize we speaking in scientific terms.
Yeah.
You understand me?
Real science.
Yeah, it's true science. The vibe is off, but you have an intuitive connection on what that vibe is.
Yeah.
Right? That there's friction in the air, that the ions, you understand me, are positive or negative charge when you go into different environments.
Yeah.
And so if we understood that, then number one, we will create a more conscious sensitivity to the environments that we go to.
Yeah.
But we are in environments that are often very austere to, our embodiment, our aura, you understand me, and who we are. Because, for those who don't know, we emit an aura from our heart.
Yeah.
You understand me? And when that is pierced, that's when we start to get sick. And we are in environments we're not supposed to be in that are in friction to whatever our vibration is. That's when we feel off. Right? And there's only certain people, and I'm a Minister Louis Farrakhan said, somebody asked him once, they said, how are you able to go into all of these different type of environments? You understand me? And not be changed by them or not feel sick by them sometimes because you're around all these different type of people. And he said, I bring my own atmosphere.
That's right.
You understand me? Like, I bring my own atmosphere.
Yeah, I know exactly what it means.
Yeah.
I walk into a place and I put a bubble around myself.
Yeah.
I just literally put an energy bubble. I just see it coming out of my head and wrapping myself. And I walk through, I got my energy bubble.
Yeah.
You know?
No, that's super key. I mean, so when we go to water, right? We 70 to 90% water. Some people say I'm basically almost 100% because even those things can be made up of water.
Yeah.
But when we're talking about water and the effect that light has on water, right? Because, you know, water is charged by light, and water has memory in it.
That's right.
You understand me? I think it was Dr. John Pollock that was giving a breakdown on the 4 phase of water. And it was one of the same doctors who discovered, I believe, HIV back in the day, who was trying to figure out ways to utilize sound waves to create medicine.
Yeah.
You understand me? And basically that every disease has a frequency, and if he can counteract that disease with a dominant frequency of the cure, then he can cure that person.
Right.
Because water traps frequency in its protons.
Yeah.
You understand me? So that if our environment is a certain vibration, then we take on that vibration of that environment.
Yep, absolutely.
It's the same study about rice and water. When you speak over certain things, you're trapping that, right? So that's why nobody who's angry should ever serve you food.
Exactly.
Or they who dislike. If you make a waiter mad, don't eat the food from there anymore.
No.
Got to keep them happy and pleasant. Otherwise, they can give you food poisoning just based on their negative energy.
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
But I bring that up to bring this. You know, as human beings, the things that we should know the most about, we know the least about.
Yeah.
And that's being a human being.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, water and light, right? We are light beings and we are water beings.
Yeah.
You understand me? Wholly. So I studied that to understand the effects that the environment has on myself.
Yeah.
That's knowledge of self, to the knowledge of cells.
You got to do that.
So, you know, what is it about light itself as a messenger of information that is important that we observe from the things that we eat, besides the breakdown is gay, right? Where we go to, but at the same time being a way for our brains to be able to travel, right? Like, and then can you correlate it into biophotons? You understand me?
Right.
You know, when I be thinking, I just be having thoughts, so they jump over. That's why I had to call this show a conversation. So as light beings, what does that mean?
Well, one thing people don't understand is that we are all made of actual light. Well, everything in the third dimension is made of light.
Mm-hmm.
And so we are light and light is us. Mm-hmm. We know that the illusion of this avatar body and this chair I'm sitting on and the table that you're sitting at, the illusion of it's there. But what is this? This is slowed down light waves. Mm-hmm. When you slow light down and the consciousness interacts with it, it collapses it into what we call solid matter. So solid matter is actually an illusion.
Right.
For example, the only thing stopping my hand from going through this chair is the repulsion of the electromagnetic frequencies. I don't actually touch the chair. You don't touch anything.
Yeah.
And so if I can phase shift the atomic frequency of my hand to match the same frequency of the atoms in this chair, I pass my hand right through it because atoms are 99.999% empty space.
Right, like pouring liquid into liquid.
Exactly, you know. That's why when galaxies merge together, like we're merging with a galaxy right now called Sagittarius, you don't see any real collisions happening or anything around us.
Shout out to my Sagittarius out there.
Yeah, because, you know, galaxies are mostly empty space, just like atoms. Everything's a fractal. So we are light beings, and also because of that, we're a fractal. We have consciousness, which is also light. And
what is a fractal?
A fractal is when you take, for example, if you look at a hologram, and you go to one part of the hologram, one tiny piece, and look at it, you'll see the entire image in that smallest piece. The only thing you lose is a little bit of resolution, okay? And so it's important for people to understand that this entire realm is a fractal of a whole. In other words, as above, so below.
So if you look at an atom, it gives you the whole thing.
It gives you the whole thing, absolutely.
So human beings, would you consider a fractal of the universe?
We're a fractal of the universe, and our consciousness, even though it's one consciousness, it's also a fractal of the main master consciousness. And it's really incredible that every thought that you think in your skull, it leaves your skull as a form of a light wave. Every time you think,
to them then.
Yeah, man. Every light wave, every time you think, and we know this because we could put a cap on your head in a laboratory, put a little electrodes on it, sensors, and tell you to think about something, and it's going to show up on the computer screen because the computer's reading the light waves coming out of your skull. We can't see those waves because we can only see 1% of the light spectrum as human beings.
Right.
We're limited. We don't see gamma rays. We don't see ultraviolet.
What affects us the most?
Yeah, exactly. Those are the things that are all around us that are really interacting with us all the time, and our brains too.
Right. And that's what I was getting to with the water, because the ultraviolet radiation is what causes that fourth phase to flow, like blood flow within our bodies and things of that nature, by creating a separation between positive and negative charge. And in between that small space right there is where it creates that charge and flow. And they was doing a study where they tried to take two prods, put one on the other end to create energy.
Yeah.
Right? But go ahead.
Yeah, so that's what it is. So, we have this power of thought, which you were talking about, having the ability to even travel through light, leaving your mind and traveling light. You can actually connect to other realms, other dimensions through conscious thought. Quantum entangling your light waves with other light waves that exist in the universe, not only in the third dimension, but even multiple dimensions.
Right. So like quantum entanglement, for those who don't understand, are two basically atoms that are entangled with one another, even if they are at vast distances.
Right.
Right. And Einstein called it, spooky, right? Because he didn't understand what was going on.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But we understand. It ain't spooky. It ain't spooky.
He said a spooky action at a distance.
Yeah.
And you can entangle atoms, you can entangle photons, which are lights. Right. So
do you think that's what happened when people fall in love? They consider to be soulmates?
I think it happens. Well, your mind can entangle with somebody on the other side of the universe. A lot of the times, you can say, I came up with this great idea.
Right.
But you really didn't. You just downloaded that idea because you entangled with the information.
Entangled.
That's all it is. All information actually exists. And now, like big time mainstream quantum physicists and theoretical physicists are admitting that this is true now.
Yeah.
Like it's not woo-woo science no more. This is like what you're getting taught in university. When I was at M.I.T. studying applied neuroscience, one of the things we learned about was this exact thing. The fact that not only can you walk in a room, like you were saying earlier, and you can sense the vibe, and you can actually transmit negative or positive energy to somebody. If somebody's at a low frequency and you walk in positive and high frequency enough, your light being can actually raise their energy level.
Right.
And if you're not high enough and they're low, they can actually drop your energy level.
Right. Depends
on how strong you are consciously. And then also we talked about the fact that we can entangle with information throughout the entire multiverse. So information can even come from other universes in your own mind. And if you're able to discern that information, you can actually then, if you can put the action behind it, it could be one of the greatest inventions. It could be Web3, it could be, whatever we got going on now. NFTs or whatever, all this stuff comes from other places.
So biophotons is what I wanted to get to. Because biophotons to me is very interesting, because I think it's like taking the concept of science and physics and being able to apply it, you understand me, in a real world sense, and connect, yourself and your willpower, right? It was Dr. Wesley. He has the Book of God. And he has a very, very dope book, very amazing book. Everybody should study it. But he gives a breakdown of biophotons, and this is one of my first introductions to it, when he was talking about a study that was done at this university, to study biophoton levels, which is basically, for those who don't know, is light within the human body.
Right.
And so one of the things that they studied was the fact that during a time that a patient was sick, you understand me, the light that they emitted glowed brighter, right? And of course that was because the body was working to heal itself.
Yep.
And the thought process was that if you go back to ancient human being origins, that those human beings were just light beings, complete light beings. And as I'm positing this thought right now, as melanin, you understand me, overtook those bodies, and you're talking about, that very dark melanin, and then you have light, piercing out of that, which used to be where hair follicles are, you understand me? Then you're talking about a blue aura, or a blue hue, right? And so in ancient texts where you see a lot of the blue representation of gods or beings, there were the representation of the original man and woman as light beings.
Yeah.
Now, the way that I connected to science more so is the idea that, you know, our mind has light within it, right? And it communicates directly with the light outside us. And that this is scientifically proven that we can think things and bend the wheel of reality around us. Like the Matrix played with the concepts and ideas. The spoon doesn't exist idea. But more so is, you know, each one of us have different levels of consciousness and conscious power. And the ability to bend and change reality around us, which is also a very masculine trait because testosterone increases that biophotonic energy, you understand me, within the body. So depleted testosterone depletes willpower as well. So it's saying that, for me, I always say that one act of masculinity is willpower, the ability to take thoughts outside your mind and produce them into reality. So if you have a people who are not able to produce their thoughts, then those people are lost without that will, right? Without that power, without that godliness. And so that's something that I think about often as I see our brothers and sisters hoping and wishing and trying to bring things forth, but they just can't because that light inside them is dead.
Plus, a lot of the male in this society right now, they're being emasculated.
Oh yeah, sterilized.
And so, you know, and a lot of it's chemical based.
Yes.
It's the food.
Chemical castration.
Chemical castration, man. It's all these microplastics that are, you know, we're inhaling them, we're eating them. It's in the food, it's in everything. They did a test on those microplastics. They were converting male frogs into women.
Right.
You know, this is just crazy stuff. So
that's a hell of a leap.
It's a big leap. It's a big leap.
Let me just myself, y'all.
Oh man, but it's so true, you know. And so it's taking away the testosterone levels in men are the lowest it's been since they've been recording.
Right.
And so to that effect, what you're saying is, you know, the levels are dropping, and the ability for men to make a lot of logical decisions is also dropping.
Right.
You see men now operating more off of emotion versus logic.
Right.
That balance of logic versus emotion isn't there anymore.
Right.
Sometimes there's a lot more men that are more emotional than women.
Yes.
So their plan is working out, you know, and the plan for them really is to not let us discover our light body, not let us discover our light consciousness and the power that we really truly have inside of us to change and bend and mold this matrix to our will and overcome and supersede where they are.
Right.
What they want us to do is just continue to stay in these small little pockets, fighting each other over scraps, and not really ever getting to the higher levels and realizing that we're supposed to be able to bring our heaven right here to this earth right now.
And see, that reminds me of when you talk about the beings that can see and they look down, right? Like you imagine somebody in a tower looking down on the people playing the game of the rat race, but they can see dimensions. They can see where the people are headed. They can see all different angles, right? And those are the people, what considered to be the 1%. You understand me? And then of course that can be translated into multi-different, you know, names and forms and species and things of that nature. But the ruling class, if you will, you understand me? The manipulating class, those who practice technology and deceit on the rest of the population to not know their power.
Right.
Like the greatest trick of the devil is to get you to not know that you're a God.
That's it.
You understand me? Because the moment that you have self-realization of your power, number one, you stop looking at them to help manage you discover it.
Exactly.
Because if we go to chattel slavery times, and I like to say chattel slavery just because it's such a different form than the rest of the slavery. But chattel slavery is all about breaking that knowledge of self and that knowing of who you are. Because how can you make a slave unless he is completely dependent upon your will?
Exactly.
And the testosterone-filled masculine slaves were the hardest ones to break, the ones that have their own faith and belief systems, because they weren't going to relinquish that power to someone else.
Right.
No, they fought, and there were insurrections all throughout times because that willpower was fighting another will. You understand me? And so now what we got is more so Chris Rock, where you don't fight the will no more. You just let it slap you around. You understand me? I just had to drop another one. I couldn't help myself. But the lack.
Oh man.
I love jokes, y'all. I love jokes. I love a comedy. But no, for real though, because you know, here we are in present day, and when we talk about chemical castration, man, this is very important. Like, we've went through so many different phases fighting those beings.
Yeah.
You understand me? Who bring in drugs, who bring in guns, who bring in propaganda, who bring in, MK Ultra.
Yeah.
You understand me? And
Toxins,
poisons from the
this
air
Yeah.
to every single thing.
It's not black people doing it.
No, definitely not. we ain't got that type of control.
No.
Unfortunately, that's the issue.
Right.
So, like you can take that back to, it's unfortunate that, the greatest minds are producing destructive things. Their greatest minds are producing destructive things.
Yeah.
And now what we are in this phase of reality is figuring out who we are. Because that's still always the biggest key to all of this.
Yeah.
Because the hardest thing is to teach another black man or woman who you are.
Right.
Let me teach you whether you want to call yourself black, original, you understand me, Moor, Hebrew, Israelite, alien, whatever you want to call yourself. You can describe yourself as an Anunnakian.
Yeah.
But understanding at the core, you understand me, that being of godliness that you possess,
right,
and that is unstoppable once you truly recognize who you are.
Yeah.
Not just from literature, not just through paperwork. I'm talking about through spirit, things that can't be taught, that have to be known deep within.
You have to walk in your own power. When I walk places, when I go places, I expect the universe to unfold for me.
Absolutely.
I expect things to open up for me and things to just happen for me when I walk into places. I can just be going to the grocery store. I'm walking in power. People, if they can jump inside of my body and feel what I'm feeling, they'd be like, God damn.
Yeah.
This guy really, you know what I'm saying? I'm walking, everywhere I go, I'm walking in pure power. I act like I'm commanding and wielding the universe to my will. And that's something that scares us. But the reason why is because we've been programmed to think if you do that, that's of the devil and that's evil. And you gotta beg somebody else to give you this power. You can't just walk in this kind of power. But the same power that created everything we see in this entire universe, in this multiverse, is the same power that's inside of my body.
That's a fact.
Yeah.
I want to talk about something, because when we talk about power, culture is probably, our culture specifically, which is getting to our spirit, powers this world. We are the battery.
Yeah.
Melanin is a battery itself.
Yeah.
Right? And when we talk about that, I was studying, years ago, the Kardashev scale.
Okay.
Right? When we're talking about type 0 to 1, 3, 4 civilizations. And when I was studying back then, I would relate everything I learned in physics and science to black culture, and how it could be an analogy to where we can utilize to liberate ourselves. So for those who don't know, the Kardashev scale is a model of, how civilizations can grow, if you will, right? Into more efficient system and models, or more control, right? So we are currently, what I believe, like 0.5, but type 0 civilization.
Type 0.
Right, type 0.
Type 0. We crawling though, we trying to crawl.
We try, the concepts are getting out there.
Yeah, it is.
But the politics are in the way, to be honest.
That's what happened, the polytricksters.
Yeah, the polytricksters. So type 0 is saying that we get our energy from dead coal and plants.
Yeah.
You understand me? That, our energy systems, number one, are inefficient. You understand me? And that's why we steady have these energy wars. You understand me? That we are dependent upon these resources, that we don't have the ability to reproduce ourselves. You understand me? And or have control over supply. And so, that's why human beings are always at risk for extinction. Ideally, is because we don't control external things outside. You understand me? We can't control a meteor hitting this planet. We can't control the sun exploding. We can't control any of those things. So that's why man now just wants to jump to another planet. You understand me? Because he don't believe that he will be able to gain control before it's too late, right?
Exactly.
But a type 1 is more so talking about the ability to control weather, control earth, control the sun, or at least in a sense being able to absorb all energy from the sun and utilize that to power the world that is today. And then you have the analogy of type 1 type systems, right? Type 1 language would be what would be considered like English. English, they're a language that's going extinct every day.
Yeah.
You understand me? And English is rapidly fast growing all across the planet Earth to become a type 1 language where everybody on the planet speaks English.
Yeah.
So that is a method, you understand me, of energy transfer, communication, and translation that all beings on this planet Earth will be in understanding.
Yeah.
Then when we're talking about systems like music, hip hop is I consider hip hop basically a type 1 system when you're talking about music.
Yeah.
Because hip hop produced beings, number one, and tones and frequencies and rhythms that are known all across the planet Earth.
Yeah, it's mathematical.
Right. And then you have other beings, the Beyoncés of the world, the Kanyes of the world, who are known by people all throughout the entire planet Earth.
Yeah.
You understand me? From a one world system,
Yeah.
these are very identifiable symbols, right? Because they're not, you don't know the person.
Yeah.
So the person is, the brand is a symbol, which is a representation of a energy.
Yeah.
You understand me? That has a translation that creates feeling, right? From each person that knows it in their perspective and their connection to it. But after I say all of that, I say all that to say, hip hop culture is the most powerful energy that exists on this planet Earth. You understand me? Because it can move reality in ways that we don't even understand yet. Yeah. Because it's a one world communication system to all melanated people across the planet Earth. That we can literally put everybody on the same vibration and frequency, you understand me? By exporting culture throughout the diaspora.
Yeah.
And if we understood how powerful that concept was, we have the ability to leap past and make quantum leaps over everybody with this system that we've created called hip hop. Yeah. And this is why we have so many culture vultures, because culture vultures understand this expressway throughout the world.
Oh, yeah.
If I connect to a rapper, I'm a white guy, and if I'm a smart white guy, I need to, and if I can afford it, I need to get close to the rappers. Yeah. The rappers don't realize they have more leverage than I do.
They're the big influences of the world.
Biggest.
World.
I've never seen a rapper understood their value so much when they stand next to a white guy and give them their presence. Yeah. Because what you're doing is you're giving them an culture and you're giving them an audience where you're spreading their message and connecting them to hip hop. Right. And it's wildly known that there are a lot of culture vultures, we just don't speak on it. Yeah. You understand me? Because people are, you know, favored for this, favored for that. But once you really understand it, there was I'm not gonna name a name at this point, famous, he might be a billionaire, maybe a couple $100 million or whatever. But I was speaking in the same arena he was speaking in. He was speaking right after me. Yeah. You know, and I kept trying to rub shoulders. I'm giving him the cold shoulder. Yeah, yeah. I don't want no pictures, no nothing. Right. Because what I realized that he would get more value if I took a picture with him than he would get from me. Right. Because now he's connected to top thought leader in the culture. He seems down. You understand me? He seems connected. Yeah. History would look at that picture and say we had a relationship. Yeah. You understand me? How could he be other than, you know, in the way we trying to depict his morality if he was connected to 19 Keys at that time? Yep. So why wouldn't I utilize that as leverage? Why would I just allow somebody to absorb my value, connect to my culture, but we don't think about time? We don't think about our true power at all.
Energy vampires.
Energy vampires. Yeah. And we utilize our dead leaders as our coal and our energy. You understand me? Yeah. So we're not operating in the present system, controlling our weather, controlling our culture, controlling our time, controlling our language, our mind, our music. Yeah. So for me, it's about taking, you know, melanated people from a type 0 civilization to a type 1 civilization. Yeah. And then, you know, type 2 and 3, those civilizations, you talking about controlling planets.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
All kind of stuff. We don't even need to go there yet. We're far off. But it's an interesting model and it's an interesting idea when you're talking about measuring progress of a people that have been trapped under another people's thumb. Yeah. You understand me? And working to increase the aggregate efficiency of our output. Yeah. What we put out based on the energy that we get back. Yeah. And how do we increase that as a people, you know, for a revolution? Yeah. Right? But I want to talk to you about something else because I heard you talking about AI. Now, I look at, we know we are in a time of declining population, right? Specifically in America anyway, you understand me? When Elon Musk said that, you know, we need population growth, and Bill Gates said we need population decline. Yeah. But what I realized, they were talking about two different places. Elon Musk was talking about America, Bill Gates was talking about Africa. Yep. So Bill Gates was saying that they're gonna have another 2 billion people by 2050. We need population decline over there. Yeah. Elon Musk say, well, listen, we already have fewer births than we do deaths. You understand me? So therefore, we on a decline. Yeah. We need more birth, right? So he trying to get out of here.
Yeah, he's trying to go. He's trying to get out.
He said, I'm out, man. The party too crowded. You feel me? He grew up in South Africa, so he know what it's like where it's 7% of them over there.
You know.
So it's interesting because I look at those who are in power, of course, power wants to maintain power.
Yeah.
Right? So it only makes sense that the people that are in power wants to continue to cede power, and they don't want to concede power to anybody else. So when you're talking about playing God, that's what they want to do. If you can't have the population size, we have to figure out another way to maintain control.
Yep.
And AI to me is one of those ways to be able to maintain control. You won't have the brain trust anywhere because people outside are no longer just coming in and saying, well, we'll give our brain to America, spark invention and innovation.
Yeah.
There's decreasing innovation and invention in this country.
Yeah.
So not only you got AI in the form of artificial intelligence, and I'm 19 keys, so I break things down into 1-9. But A is numerical 1 and I is numerical 9. And that 19 is representation of male, female, conscious, subconscious, you understand me? God itself, because everything is between that 1 through 9, collapse back into a 1. When we talk about artificial intelligence, it's more so not even just AI of artificial intelligence, artificial insemination, artificial ingredients as well, right? And these are all the ways that I see that those who are in power are working to maintain power, utilizing AI. Can you speak upon the future of AI and where we headed?
Yeah, definitely. The AI is dangerous. If you look into the ancient Sumerian tablets, you'll discover in the Epic of Gilgamesh, who was considered to be half human, half god. They call him a demigod. His father was Enki, and he had a human mother, according to the tablets.
Yeah.
And they wanted to send Enlil, who his uncle, sent him on a journey, a hero's journey. This is the original story of Noah's Ark, by the way. This is where the Bible got it from.
So Sumerian, for those who don't know, the Anunnaki, first civilization?
First civilization, the cradle of civilization, they call it the cradle of civilization, coming out of Mesopotamia.
What did they invent?
Roads, city grid streets, bicameral Congress, plumbing systems. I mean, you name it, everything you could think of, schooling and chemistry and mathematics, and they even had a metric system back then. We're talking about, thousands, hundreds of thousands of years ago, they had a metric system. And so they literally, the whole modern society we have today came out of Sumer. There's a tablet where Enlil is speaking, and he's showing his sister this crystal tablet, by the way, is what it's called. And he's showing her his plans for all time on this planet. He said, these plans I have here, these plans are gonna last for all time. And that's where we're still in it today. We still got the same polytrickster program he put in back then. They had their own numerical kingship, the way they ran themselves, but they gave humans the political system.
That's a very
and they also installed inflation at that same exact time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a very, 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 very interesting idea. So in that system, right, I know that children who are born, and the same time you're born in any time, you succumb to a dominant paradigm. The dominant frequency wins, right? And so do you believe that based on, the Anunnaki or Enlil having this crystal tablet, you understand me, where he wrote down his plans for time dominance, you understand me, so that he can conquer ages of time, do you think that it's possible to go against that plan, you understand me, and create our own will for the planet?
Yeah, it can. The program that he put in was so good. We're born, we're given a name, a race, and a religion, and we're basically, we grow up defending that whole identity. It's a fake identity. It's not really us. We've kind of forgotten and relinquished who we really are and given it up to this system, this institutionalized system that was put in place thousands of years ago. But if we really come together, that's the biggest part we got to do. We got to come together and stop all this divide and conquer. You're this religion, I'm this thing, or you're this light skin and I'm this dark skin. All this stuff, we got to, black men want to fight black men all the time. We want to attack each other socially now on social media because you doing too good and I'm not doing as good as you. We got to drop all of that. We got to stop all of that. We got to synchronize. We got to realize that we're better together than apart. Not tearing each other down, fighting each other, slapping each other, all this kind of crazy stuff. We got to come together and we got to realize, man, how can I bring a piece of the puzzle? How can you bring a piece of the puzzle? You know what I'm saying? Just sitting here talking to you got pieces of the puzzle that I don't have, and I got pieces of the puzzle that you don't have. We can start building a whole doggone puzzle. We can put a puzzle together. And you add more people. Next thing you know, that picture, that painting is amazing. We can make a mosaic. And so until we get to that point, though, we're always going to be bickering and fighting and arguing over resources and pocket watching and hating and worrying about this, worrying about that, because that's the program they instilled into us. We got to now override this DNA and this RNA programming code. We got to say, you know what? We got to talk to ourselves. You know what? I'm being a hater right now. I'm being a troll right now. I'm pocket watching right now. I'm being jealous right now. Why am I doing that? And analyze inside of ourselves. Why am I doing this? Why do I feel like this? And work on our internal self and learn how to not be that way. Learn how to give somebody the benefit of the doubt. Learn how to try to work with somebody. Learn how to ask better questions so you can understand better instead of getting angry. And learn how to control your emotional state. And when we can do that and we can link up and we can make big power moves together, that's when the world's going to change.